It's funny you put them together because they're also quite separate subjects in some ways. They kind of get connected doing it. Certainly, if I was to take cloud, it's a hot topic because it's revolutionising. If that's the right word. It's the revolution that's really now going on. Partly because people are starting to realise how much they can get out of kind of on-demand scale and utility billing, how much that dramatically changed the whole commercial kind of IT delivery element to it. And then I think people are starting to think about how they change that. Not everything will go to the cloud, but I certainly see that the technology, I don't see a single piece of technology that's almost changing now without cloud in some way being the catalyst for it. Then I think what you've got then with mobile advertising is just following mobile. It's a really important aspect, it's an important commercial aspect, but it doesn't exist without whole mobile services, with people taking up greater level of mobiles. And again, part of the catalyst for that is kind of user demand, but part of it is also cloud, because people need to be able to scale applications very quickly, they need to do it in a consistent way globally, and again, that's why cloud is becoming the catalyst for that. So in a way, they're all linked, and that cloud bit and the world kind of expansion of cloud is what's forcing or what's pushing mobile advertising. Well, I think there's a number of big challenges there. Certainly cloud is in its infancy. We've been in the cloud business since 2006, but I'd still describe it as, there's still a huge amount of change got to happen in cloud. And equally, there's a lot of people got to starting to understand it, work how to use it effectively, and to change an awful lot of the legacy they've got to be able to make use of this, this fantastic, awesome catalyst. And therefore, one of the legacies is just people's adoptions rate will take time. Equally, if I take kind of mobile advertising, being able to get it out there is great, but the whole mobile world is such a fast-changing environment, and what consumers want is changing so rapidly that advertising has to follow that. It has to be able to deliver its services. It can't just do the old way of web page advertising, just hoping that somebody will look elsewhere on a page. That just isn't the real estate. But equally, what people want out of their phone is very different to on a web. So it's got to chase a lot of very fast-changing consumer trends, which I think is difficult. There is quite a few, and I'd link them all back to cloud. It sounds like I'm very biased on cloud, but it is really a catalyst that's starting to change things. So I think there are lots of interesting hot topics. How we fundamentally develop applications is rapidly changing. So right from the kind of new languages that are kind of coming up to the fore, and some of them maturing, the kind of nodes and the Rubies of this world, and the Pythons that's suddenly becoming far more adopted. So we have a changing how we build it, again, because people are starting to think away from that whole single app mentality. People are starting to think about how I structure my applications differently, where I build resilience, how I deal with DR. All of that world is changing, which I think is a massive hot topic. I think people are starting to realise and think, how do I globalize all my apps? One thing we know is that governments love data legislation, and they like to tax against bits where data resides. So what we're seeing here is that more and more data will have to stay in country. So people are now starting to think, I've got to change that whole model of how I deliver across the world. Again, back to mobile advertising. The idea of having one mobile advertising server in one country for the world, that model's broken now. People have got to think, how do I get that into every country? So how do I globalize all that? So I think there's a huge amount of change completely across the board, right down to how do I do big data? Great topic that everybody talks about in big data. We can now analyze all of the customer data. We can now analyze all of our historical transactions. Being able to do that's fantastic. But again, it needs to change. It's that whole world, everything's changing.